Welcome to another video from Demystifying Proposals. Our mission is to break down the proposal process and make proposals make sense. In this video, we talk about kickoff meetings and setting the right tone for the rest of the proposal development process. So one of the questions that you face when you're starting to plan for your kickoff meeting is, has there been capture, or how much capture has there been? In a perfect world, you would have been working on the capture for the RFP long before it actually went live. That is, before the final RFP was published. Maybe there's been capture developing a strategy for the response. Maybe there's been capture determining what the win theme should be. Maybe there's been capture thinking about what the competitor's response might look like. Maybe there's been capture to gather past performances and resumes for those to be bid as key personnel. Or maybe there's been capture to actually start drafting a response for the technical proposal, generally in response to a draft statement of work, or even better, a draft RFP, but sometimes in response to a previous RFP. But now that the RFP is live and there's a due date for the proposal looming, you need to bring all that together, and the kickoff meeting is part of that. In consultation with the capture manager, who should be your partner in all things for the proposal, determine who needs to be invited to the kickoff meeting. Generally, this is the sort of basic invitation list. The solution architect or whoever is going to be leading your technical approach. Proposal volume leads, so not only who's going to be leading the technical approach, but the cost volume, if there's a past performance volume, whatever volumes there are, the leads for those particular volumes. The authors, of course, assuming that you've made those assignments. A past performance writer, who's often a proposal coordinator. A resume writer, who again may be the proposal coordinator. Contracts, because again, your partner in all things proposal is contracts. Pricing, another key partner in all things proposal. The business lead, or whoever that may be for the portfolio that the work is going to be performed under. The program manager, if you have one that you're going to be bidding on the work. And then the chief growth officer, or depending on the size and strategic importance of the bid, you may not invite the chief growth officer, or maybe you don't have a chief growth officer, but whoever plays that kind of role in the organization. Invitations generally are sent out the same day as the RFP goes live. You don't need to necessarily have the kickoff meeting on the same day that the RFP goes live. If you have the time and you're organized enough to be able to do that, that's fine. But you need to get moving, and sending out the invitations is definitely the first step in that process. In consultation with the capture manager, like I said, the capture manager is your partner in the proposal development process. Develop a kickoff meeting deck. The purpose of the kickoff meeting deck is to bring everybody up to speed on the opportunity. Not everybody who comes to the kickoff and not everybody has been paying as much attention to the opportunity, perhaps, as you and the capture manager have. So you need to bring everybody up to speed, tell them all the things that they need to know in order to move forward. So generally, there are 3 sections to the deck: capture and strategy. This is usually from the capture manager, and it gives the team insight and reminds them of the win themes and the discriminators and what's the compelling part of your proposal. It might include also a brief competitive assessment, again, just so everyone has the same information. And then a solution information section to give the team an overview of the solution you plan to propose. This can be presented by the solution architect or the technical volume lead if he or she is comfortable with that kind of presentation. And then as the proposal manager, you do an RFP decomposition to detail the proposal instructions and how the outline will be organized relative to sections L and M and C. That is the proposal instructions, the proposal evaluation criteria, and the statement of work or the performance work statement, the shortcuts that we use for L and M and C. And especially if there's anything weird about the instructions or the evaluation criteria, something that as you're decomposing, you notice that something in L doesn't quite match what's in M, something in M doesn't quite match what's in L, and maybe your section C is longer than the actual page count, and there's all kinds of things to think about. So it's good to have all of that up front in the kickoff meeting deck so everybody knows the challenges that you might be facing. When it comes to the kickoff meeting execution, generally the capture manager starts the meeting by briefing whatever they know about the opportunity, especially anything gleaned since the last time the team was briefed. Again, competition, strategy, win themes, discriminators, that first section of the kickoff meeting deck that you put together. Then the solution architect briefs the planned solution relative to the statement of work or the performance work statement. And this includes anything that may have changed since the capture, and therefore anything, if you've been drafting content, anything that may have to change based on the final RFP. Then again, like I said, the proposal manager brings everybody up to speed on what the final RFP says. So what are the proposal instructions? The due date, the font sizes, the number of pages, especially, like I said, if there's any challenges with regards to the number of pages. Sometimes font sizes is a question that you might want to ask if they only give you one font size and they don't delineate a font size for graphics or tables. You may want to ask that question. So all of those things you want to talk about in the proposal instructions part of your briefing. Then you want to talk about if there's anything unusual with regard to the proposal instructions or the instructions to offers. Remember to address not only the technical approach, but also past performances, resumes, and the cost volume requirements too. We have a tendency to think about the technical approach when we're talking about kickoff meetings, but it's important, and especially since you're going to have contracts and pricing in the room, to remind them of anything that they may need to look at with regard to the cost volume requirements as well. Then you want to talk about section M, or the evaluation criteria. Again, especially if there's anything unusual about it. And be sure to include not only the evaluation criteria for the technical approach, but all of the required sections of the proposal. Often the technical approach is evaluated based on relevancy, but past performance may be rated on relevancy, or maybe rated on confidence, whether it generates confidence in the government evaluators that you know how to do this kind of work. So it's just good to remind everybody whatever the evaluation criteria are. And then review the authors against the requirements and discuss whether you have as many authors as you need. Then the third part of the kickoff meeting execution is to open the floor to let others weigh in. Be sure to ask the contracts folks if they see anything in the final RFP that is unusual and hasn't already been addressed. They have a different eye than the capture manager or the proposal manager on the requirements, and it's really important to make sure that they weigh in on anything that looks like it may need longer to address, or something that's, they want to make sure that you address it correctly. Kind of the same thing with the pricing folks. You want to make sure that they talk about all the elements related to the cost volume and the pricing spreadsheet. And if there's anything that they need to do differently than they thought they might need to do them based on the final RFP. Then be sure, as the proposal manager, and you're the proposal leader now that the final RFP comes out, talk about the next steps. Daily stand-up timing. Are you going to have a daily meeting? Is it maybe only going to be 3 times a week, depending on the strategic value and the timing of the RFP itself? Maybe you don't have a daily stand-up every day. If you have a lot of program folks, sometimes you have to have it either early in the morning or at lunchtime or at the end of the day, because they have a job to do, and so you have to work around them. When are your color teams going to happen? Maybe you're only going to schedule a pink team to start with. Maybe you'll schedule red, gold, and white after that. But what's the tempo of the color team reviews? And any expectations that you have about content development. You'll dive into these specifically with the authors in a different meeting, but in the kickoff meeting, it's good to have a sort of an overview of that information. If you have partners on your proposal, generally partners are not invited to the kickoff. However, if you have partners who are going to be key to your solution development or have writing assignments, you may need to do a second kickoff with them. You want to have a kickoff internally because there may be things that you need to talk about that may be hinky or that may cause you to have some concerns, and you don't want to necessarily be open kimono and let your partners know about that. So kickoff meeting internal, but you also need to have a kickoff meeting external, particularly if your partners are going to be a big part of your proposal development process. Generally speaking, you follow the same instructions in terms of the invitations and the kickoff deck, though consider whether there's anything proprietary in your kickoff deck that may need to be removed before a kickoff meeting with partners. And also consider whether some partners are going to be more involved than others and whether that is public knowledge among the larger proposal team. So sometimes you have a partner who's a strategic partner and they're going to be very heavily involved. And sometimes you have partners that are just part of your team because you need to meet certain requirements, or they may have a skill set that you need to have on your team, but they're not necessarily as deeply involved in the proposal development. So think about all the political implications of that. We hope you found this video from Demystifying Proposals helpful. If you liked the video, please click on the like button and please leave a comment if there's something about the video that you think we could improve. And like the channel, subscribe to the channel, and click on that bell so you get notified when the next video comes out. Thanks.